why don't you show us? A Django app?
Yep, absolutely. Let's do that. Well, I can share the one that you and I have been working on, because you're going to be familiar with this. So, like I said before, this is this is my VS Code setup. I have not any unusual customizations apart from the cat in the corner, but the main thing is the Python extension for VS Code is something that you need to have as a requirement before you're up and running. Also, you tend to work in the terminal quite a bit with Django to run a few commands and stuff like that. So often, it's kind of useful to have a terminal ready to go if you need it. We won't do that yet, but I'll show you just the layout of this project. So this is a project that we've been fleshing out and creating some videos about, which is going to be interesting in a couple of months when this is launched. But yeah, basically you have a few basic concepts inside Django. I guess the main one, kind of the entry point to the application is a set of URLs that the Django app will decide to direct the user to different parts of the application. So in other frameworks, I guess these are called routes. Sometimes you annotate a piece of code like a function or something with a route label. In Flask, you definitely do that. In Django, you keep it all in one list. You can split this up if your application is massive. You can have different files to describe different sections of the application. But generally, you've kind of got this routing, kind of like a routing table, I guess, is the entry point for Django. And inside this, you would say, okay, if somebody goes to /about, then execute this this function, and I'll show you what that means in a second. And then within that, you can then give that a name. So if you ever need to direct someone or create a link to that route, you don't need to hard code the path. You can just refer to it by name. So, we've got the about page and the destinations page, and we can just refer to those by name. Also, because Django is designed to be data-driven, you've also got this concept that most of the pages will be backed off onto a website, and a database. And within the database, you're going to have tables, and you're going to have rows which represent, objects or things in your application, depending on what they are. So in this application, this is a fake space agency that we put together, and I can show you what those models look like in a second. But I mean, the absolute basics of this is that you say, okay, we have a route, and then we then have a file called views, and inside this we have a Python function, and the URL views.index basically goes to this function. So when somebody goes to that part of the page, it runs this code, and then you can decide what you want to do with the user from there. So in this case, we're just going to do the most basic thing, which is just render. So basically parse this HTML template and send that back to the user. So Django also has a templating engine. It's actually got two templating engines built in, but the most popular one, I guess, is the Django templating engine, which gives you the ability to write HTML files that combine both HTML tags that you'd be familiar with, as well as these little helper tags. So some things, for example, you might want to chop and change parts of the page depending on the data in the database, or depending on other attributes. You can also do things like have a template that all of the pages extend from. So this is something that you don't want to copy and paste the same massive block of HTML with all the headers and stuff. So you can just use these special tags. Anything that kind of has a curly brace and a percentage basically represents a server-side tag for Django. And Django has got like hundreds of these built-in server-side tags that can do anything from pull data from the database, all the way through to doing inline swapping out translations for different languages. I've worked with Django apps where you could say this is the English version, but you can have a lookup table for all the different languages you support. There's even a tag for lorem ipsum. If you just want to put boilerplate in, there's a built-in tag for that. So working with dates, formatting dates, there's like so much flexibility in the templating system. And I can show you a slightly more complex example. But I'm sure you have questions, Christopher. So I'll answer your questions first.
Yeah, so I guess so. My first question then is sort of like with the routing is so basically like if we get right down to it, what you're doing is somebody goes to some particular path, and then all we're doing in response to that is just executing some function, some method that's then going to respond to that.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, in these cases, these are functions that we've written in Python. It takes a request, which is an object, and you can get information from that request object, such as the get parameters, the post parameters, stuff like that.